Hey guys, welcome back to the Saucy Sibz podcast. I'm your host, Francesca.
And I'm Nicodemus.
And we are here with Dr. Jeff McWhorter. Did I pronounce it right?
You nailed it.
Heck yeah. And Stella, his little mini labradoodle. She's going to be running around. She keeps jumping up in my lap. So honestly, you're welcome for the puppy content. But Dr. Jeff, we were just talking to him about all the different types of people that we have on our podcast from all over. We got DJs, we've had drag queens. Now we're starting like a whole wellness series because you guys know we've been trying to get on that health journey. And we found like the perfect thing that's going to like force us to get into that. And Dr. Jeff, we had so many questions for him and we're so interested. And he was awesome enough to come on the podcast. So Dr. Jeff, welcome.
Thanks for having me, guys. So how's your experience been so far with hyperbaric oxygen therapy?
I loved it. You feel very, well, first, if you fall asleep in it, because it's so relaxing,
It's the best.
you're kind of like a little drowsy, like in the middle of the day, but then it gives you such an energy boost. And I was surprised. I didn't have any trouble with like the ear thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
I always had a hard time with like scuba diving or anything.
Sure.
I ruptured my eardrums a long time ago, and I just was kind of nervous about that, but I was fine.
Yeah, and even if you do have difficulty with that, we can provide you with what's called a Zoke device, where it's
that?
like a little suction tube that helps manually clear your ears rather than having to do the old blow through the nose, yawn, or swallow thing. So if you're ever having those difficulties, just let my staff know. They'll give you one before your session.
Yeah.
But that's a quick trick.
Yeah.
So
I've never heard of that before.
yeah.
Well, we also are having you on because congratulations on the new spa in Cherry Creek.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we are actually sitting with all the HBots. But could you just tell our audience a little bit about you, how you got into HBot, why you believe in it so much, and what is it?
Absolutely. So primarily what I do in my clinic in Centennial is a lot of brain recovery, as well as I'm a chiropractor. So everything from the spine to the housing of the spine being the housing of the nervous system has been kind of my premise behind how I wanted to treat. And the reason why I got into that is because I've had 6 severe head traumas in my own history.
Oh.
So, and I kind of was not a huge fan of how the cookie cutter approach to head injuries was.
Yeah.
So it drove me throughout my career to try and strive to change that. And one of the secret sauce mechanisms in most of my treatment plans has always been hyperbaric oxygen therapy, which, by the way, is what HBot stands for. But as far as it goes, hyperbaric has been a game changer in my own personal life, as well as I've seen so many success stories in my main clinic that the limitation behind this modality has always been the price point. So my goal as a practitioner was to make this life-changing modality available to all walks of life, regardless of what your income status was or your collar that you wear is, and help people just maximize their living through something as simple as oxygen. Right?
Yeah.
A lot of people haven't heard about it at all. Like I'll tell people, they're like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I've been working at a bar, and so I've been telling people like, "Oh, like I'm going into a hyperbaric chamber today," and they're just like, "What the fuck is that? Like, what are you doing?"
If they've had at least 3 shots from you, they should come see me the next morning.
You said it's a great hangover cure.
It is the best hangover cure, from what I hear.
I'm taking notes. I'm taking notes.
So, my one of my first HBot spas was in Newport Beach, California during the pandemic. And
We hung out there during the pandemic and it like wasn't shut down at all.
Oh yeah, no, we were very sneaky in Southern California, but and as a wellness facility, I got to claim that essential aspect of a business. But I mean, some of my marketing was started around plastic surgery recovery, as it does excellent for that as far as reducing the reaction that you have from surgery and how fast you can get back out to socializing without being obvious you had some work done.
Yeah.
And also, during the pandemic, everybody was drinking like it was Vegas. So on a daily basis, it was a very good modality for people to come in. you feel kind of rough from the night before, an hour in this chamber makes you make sure that you don't miss a minute of the game the next day, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
That's insane.
I love that.
Were you telling me you saw Chelsea Handler? Yeah.
Did you see that? Chelsea Handler was she's been doing this thing where she is kind of attacking people that are attacking her for not having kids.
Yeah.
And she doesn't want kids. She is a celebrity and she just lives it up.
Sure.
And so she's kind of been throwing it in people's faces, that people that, who have kids. And so it's kind of a little tasteless, but it's also hilarious. And people are like, oh, you're just a sad woman with no family who just is an alcoholic. And she's like, I might be an alcoholic, but I have a hyperbaric chamber in my house, so it doesn't matter. And I still look really good.
And she was like, and because I don't have kids and I prioritize my career, she was like, I can afford this. So I can drink and have 0 hangovers and you can't. Like, sorry.
Yeah, that's the funny thing. I mean, about 40 times a year, I will actually sell these chambers to people that have fallen in love with them so much that they want one in their house, and I'm able to be a distributor for them. But I mean, as far as it goes, I've had one in mine for on and off for the last 9 years, and it's been my secret sauce to make sure that after seeing 40 to 50 patients a day, I still have enough energy to do things like a podcast at 6 p.m.
Yeah, right.
No, that's literally what we need. We said this year that we wanted to be booked and busy, like at the beginning of 2023. And I'm like, oh my God, like I take it back. I'm like, this is too much. I'm like, how are we like doing this? Yeah, this is like our 3rd podcast in 2 days. And then also helping manage a venue and all this stuff. And I'm like, we have friends who are really busy and do a lot of things, and we call them like the sleepless elite, or we have this working theory that they're actual vampires.
Yeah.
I saw your post.
Yeah. So since I don't want to like give up my soul, I feel like this is the closest thing for me to becoming a vampire and like part of the sleepless elite.
Yeah. Well, the motto behind the HBot spa is life and longevity. So my purpose by bringing this to all walks of life that can afford it is how to optimize your living. And we live in one of the most active states in the United States. So not only does the HBot spa offer hyperbaric oxygen therapy, but we also have customizable IVs and also the neurofeedback side of things as well. But hyperbaric seems to be kind of the pinnacle of the longevity side of things. So
could you tell us why it's better than like just doing a bunch of deep breaths or just going to sleep with some 100% oxygen in your nose? Like, what makes it different?
Sure. So atmospheric pressure is the difference. So excuse me. Atmospheric pressure is the difference as it pertains to the fact that when you're in a hyperbaric chamber, you're not only respiratorily ingesting a higher concentration of pure oxygen, but atmospherically the pressure is increased, which means that your absorption rate throughout the entire body is increased. And what that means in a nutshell is that as our respiratory rate is increased and our absorption rate is increased, as blood circulates through our lungs, we pick up 100% saturation of oxygen. As that circulates through the rest of our cells and our tissue in the body, that gas deliverance, that blood deliverance increases. And as aerobic organisms, we thrive when we're in a better oxygenated status.
Okay.
And so therefore, things like reducing inflammation, better energy throughout the day, better quality of sleep at night, anti-aging as it causes release of collagen in our skin and our hair. And then you also have the aspect of how it increases the length of our telomeres in our DNA. So,
okay, can you explain telomeres? Because I
sure
think I know what it is, but I just heard it once, but I really don't have a clue.
So when we think about our DNA structure, okay, we have one aspect of our DNA is our telomere length.
Right.
Okay, so when you're born, your telomere length is the greatest it's ever going to be, and as we get older, it starts to shrink. So it's like our lifeline. As our telomeres get shorter, when they disappear, so do we, so to speak. Okay. So about it's probably been about 6-7 years now, but there was a study in Tel Aviv, Israel, where they did a study on hyperbaric where they showed, I think it was close to a 20% increase in telomere length after 60 sessions. So you're talking about increasing the lifeline of us was the first time in scientific history that we proved a modality had an anti-aging benefit.
Yeah.
And so from that standpoint, that's one of the premises as to why I put my first HBot spa in Newport Beach, California too.
Yeah.
We're trying to Benjamin Button on these people out
Yeah,
here.
Exactly.
Truly, I turned 34 this year, and luckily I've somehow like gotten prettier with age, but I feel like I'm kind of coming up to that age where it's like I gotta like start doing something.
100%.
Like I mean I've used like really nice like eye cream and face cream because of my mother since I was like literally 8 years old, so that's helped. But I'm like, okay, like if I want to like keep looking good, I've got to like actually do something.
Yeah, that Christmas present of Lemare is very good for everybody. You
Dude,
know,
Lemare is like the pinnacle.
What is that?
It's like really expensive face cream, like
okay,
$300 a jar.
Oh, man,
it's like the one thing I get my mom every Christmas.
Yeah,
that
me
makes
too.
her cry.
No, it's truly like worth it though.
Yeah.
Like you put it on your face and you're like, I feel expensive.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's good.
Mom, Christmas is coming up.
Yeah.
You know, people think we're twins a lot of the time, and
I don't see it.
I don't see it at all
Yeah,
either.
isn't that weird?
I really don't.
I don't
see
think
it
we
at all.
look alike, but
And
Maybe from
maybe like
Yeah.
we have the same mom and dad and stuff, but like people will always be like, who do you think is older, you know? And then I feel like a little bit ago people were like, oh, like, you know, because you're a woman, they'll be like, oh, I think, you know, Nick's older probably. But now recently people are like, oh, you're way older, Nick. And I'm like, way older? Way older?
I know,
So,
and it's like I
I'm
don't know
like,
if they're saying that because that's like the right answer, but I am 5 years older than him,
Yeah.
and
that question sounds like a trap to me.
It is a
honestly.
trap.
Yeah, a little bit.
You know? So I feel like there is a right answer.
but I literally want people to like ask like, what are you doing? Like, I want a Benjamin Button on everyone.
Yeah, I
just
agree.
come up, I turn 34 and I start looking 28. That's the goal.
So, you know, if it's the creme de la creme of what this clinic offers, it would be the NAD plus, which accelerates your metabolic activity in all cells of your body, followed by an hour of HBot. That is like my secret sauce myself.
Okay.
Now, I understand I look 40 when I'm 34 myself, but that's because I picked a stressful career, not because I don't practice what I preach. But
Yeah.
that combination of those two modalities in this office are really what is the epitome of anti-aging that we offer here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hyperbaric, though, by itself, if you do it consistently, and most research indicates that if you're consistent with hyperbaric, you get a lasting effect of your affinity or likeliness to bind to oxygen on your hemoglobin and your red blood cells that lasts for about 72 to 96 hours. So if you think about that, now you got to be consistent in the beginning phases. But if you think about that, if you're consistent like 2, 3, 4 times a week for the first month, then you can start tapering down, but never should you do less than twice a week. Honestly.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you can make it an hour twice a week in this office, you will notice the results within the first month.
Dr. Jeff, is that okay if I call you Dr.
Yeah,
Jeff?
yeah,
Okay.
100%.
He was asking us how much we've gotten in here, and I was like, we've been so busy, but I think it's like we've been so busy we need to come more. But then also he was like, we have to take a before and after photo.
Yeah, we're gonna do that.
So he's been generous enough to let us like come so we can start like telling you guys like our results and then get you guys in here. But I would love to post a before and after photo of like my face, my body. But back to the NAD. Yeah. I heard one of the Real Housewives talking about it the other day. What is that and why is it great?
So in a nutshell, NAD helps accelerate your metabolic activity in all of your cells.
So will it make me skinny?
Yeah. So it'll help you.
But does that age you?
No, not necessarily. So what it does is it helps reduce things like inflammation.
Okay.
And then for patient, now I will tell you, I'm a practitioner that believes in no bad surprises for patients. So the one thing I like to let you know about is if you might feel a little icky when you're doing NAD. When the needle's in, I'm a big guy, but when the needle's in, I still feel like, all right, we're getting close to the end, right? And then as soon as it comes out, about an hour later, I feel like Superman. Wow. So, I mean, to be honest, the experience is not so favorable, but the juice is worth the squeeze, so to speak.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah,
so But what that does, everything from my patients that suffer from brain injuries, and like what I see at my main clinic, to my wellness patients that just want to fight father time as they're getting older, it helps speed up our metabolic activity, whether that's how it works in our brain or how it reduces inflammation or how quick we get through our fatigue throughout the day. But overall, the end benefit is you feel rejuvenated pretty quick after the IV. And for NAD, because it is more of the costly effects of IV therapy, you do it one time a week, you're pretty substantial. If in a perfect world you do it twice a week with your IV, you're on the Superman protocol, as we call it. So yeah.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Yeah, but I mean, when we started working with you, it wasn't just for the beautician aspects of things, but you have some complications yourself.
Yeah, so it's funny. I don't know if I've ever talked about it on the podcast. I used to talk about it. I've been on a lot of other people's podcasts and talk about it. But for those of you who don't know, it was about 5 or 6 years ago, I was diagnosed with mold illness or mold toxicity, Lyme disease, which takes forever to get a diagnosis. And then some like co-infections of just like different like overgrowth of bacteria in my gut. And what was I going to say? So and I have celiac disease, but I've known that for like 10 years. But with the inflammation part of that, what I don't think people realize, like I get really sad when I hear of people struggling, and so many people these days struggling with mental health issues, because kind of all of my diagnoses, I started going to doctors because I was having like extreme brain fog and then depression to the point of like suicidal ideation. Sure. And it was crazy because I knew in my head, like logically, I was like, I love my life. I have a wonderful family. I like my job. I've done everything like sort of on that checklist, but there wasn't like a reason in my life to want to leave my life. And like my brain would just like constantly repeat this loop that everyone would be better off and I would be better off if I wasn't here. And logically, like I never attempted, because it was like, logically I know that would be silly to, there's always better days. It's like a permanent solution to a temporary problem. But with the celiac disease, when I first went gluten-free, I would say it got rid of like 80% of my depression. And I see some people who kind of like eat fast food every day and they're on all these antidepressants. And I kind of try to explain to them, like, I truly believe that depression is not a disease, just my personal opinion, and that it's a symptom of inflammation.
Yeah, and I see this quite a bit in neuro patients, right? And full disclosure, my own personal story, I've battled depression 26 years myself. So that's why in all my clinics, I offer neurofeedback. Neurofeedback is a great modality that's non-pharmacology, that's non-invasive, that helps us retrain brainwave activities and our communication between different lobes of the brain, so that how our emotional regulation takes place is corrected. And I would agree with you. I think that a lot of people think that anxiety or depression is a lifelong diagnosis, whereas, for instance, like say you have a concussion, right? Okay, you could have been a happiest-go-lucky person prior to that concussion. Maybe doing mental math with you is a cakewalk, and now all of a sudden you have to have a calculator add 3 + 5.
Yeah.
And to me, it's normal for somebody to find a level of depressive feeling when you lose function.
Totally.
Right? Or when your life is impaired by a diagnosis that you didn't sign up for necessarily. Now, but back to the Lyme and the mold and the kind of autoimmune aspect of things. Again, if we're looking at how immune system functions, if we optimize the environment for all of our cells to function in, whether that's our limbic system, our immune system, our respiratory system, whatever system we're working with through oxygen, we are providing the optimal environment for cells to function, which makes it even more important when we have a dysfunction in that area, right? Not to mention when you're talking about hyperbaric oxygen therapy and the fact that how it reduces free radicals and the fact that how it has a detoxification effect for a lot of patients. Yes. And to your point where you had mentioned, hey, when I first get out, I feel fatigue. And we spoke the other day about that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the initial process of detoxifying the body is taxing. And then I think that you get over that hump and all of a sudden you start feeling the benefits that somebody that's maybe not facing those challenges also experiences. But from the side of the mental health or the cognitive fog that goes with something like an aggressive autoimmune disease like Lyme, that's why I put neurofeedback in these clinics as well. And the nice thing is when I spent the last 9 years in practice with a multifaceted practice of about 23 to 25 different modalities that I offer down in Centennial, I looked at how could I replicate myself without me having to be 20 places at once. And these 3 modalities, from having adequate staff that's well trained in hyperbaric oxygen therapy to excellent compounding paramedics on staff for the IV, and then the neurofeedback side of things to address what, honestly, let's be real, since the pandemic, mental health has become another pandemic.
Absolutely.
And how we can say, hey, you know what? Instead of it being $120 for a counseling session, you can come here for $600 a month and do up to 20 sessions, which equates to $30 a session, to do things for mental health, for IV, or for hyperbaric, depending on how you want to build your package. And then we also have the a la carte menu if you're not sold on becoming a member, so to speak. But I think that the goal of hyperbaric oxygen therapy spas is to promote a better life and a longer longevity for all people. And I think these 3 modalities are what I've seen in practice as being the most widespread, desired, and effective treatments that doesn't require a physician that knows exactly how to dive into everything and be specific with you to have some benefit. And then if you are a case that needs that, come see me down in Centennial.
So how does it help with, like, let's say, like the mold? So like just detoxing?
Well, I think there's a lot to be said about the aspect of how mold, for lesser of a better word, strangles cellular function. Okay. And so I think that most mold starts with an ingestion through our respiratory system.
I lived in a moldy house in college.
So if you're dealing with that, it's not that, you were exposed to it maybe topically, right? But you're ingesting, you're respirating in that area where those microspores are getting into your lung system. And so what that has an effect with is that your body goes into hyper vigilant immunity towards that. And then when you deal with complicating that further with Lyme disease, which impairs your autoimmune response, that makes it even harder. But if you look back to the source of everything, mold starts in the respiratory system. So how do we help improve the function of the respiratory system? Hyperbaric oxygen therapy is a pretty good way of doing that because, again, as blood's circulating, the best way for our cells to fight any kind of infection is to be in an optimal environment for those cells to function that are responsible for fighting infection. And if we think about it from a very simplistic way, blood and oxygen are like the key components for any one of our cells to function. So as our blood's circulating through our lungs at a better oxygenation level, we're having better perfusion of blood and oxygen as it circulates through the body. That's providing a lifeline, so to speak, to our immune system that's fighting against something like mold.
I'm so interested to keep coming and see if, because like I always kind of view allergies as like a bucket. So I can be fine and kind of like lax on my diet a little bit and then all of a sudden it'll kind of hit me. Or if I'm having like a flare up with Lyme or something, then I'm like super more sensitive. But I'm wondering if I keep coming, if like my food sensitivities will like kind of lessen, because maybe if my body's not reacting to everything, it's not going to be like reacting so much to all the food.
Well, it's usually like a order of operations, so to speak, right? We got to, normally when I see a patient that's complicated by something like a mold poisoning and an autoimmune disorder, it's like, let's clear one and then work on the other.
Yeah.
And then kind of stair step it down. And as far as your allergies go, they're going to change every 7 to 8 years typically.
Okay.
So it's like, for us, you can have a lot of... I think that the nice thing about hyperbaric oxygen therapy is that it is a global body treatment.
Yeah.
Right.
Whereas say you come to me for a shoulder injury, okay, I could do class 4 laser and I could do acupuncture, I could do PRP injections with my staff, okay, but I'm only treating this joint. Whereas if you have something that affects the entirety of the body, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, an hour out of your day helps treat the entire system, not just one area of that. So I think that in a case like yourself, I think the first thing is getting us to clear the mold and then working on how to reduce the effects that Lyme has on the nervous system, and then progressing into how we get into wellness as far as addressing food sensitivities and how much you like eating at North or whatnot, you know? So.
Yeah. Oh, that's so exciting.
The whole body thing, that makes a lot of sense to me, because it's literally like you're in a chamber and and it's like breathing, you know, and oxygen goes to every cell. Conversely, something that is whole body but bad for you.
Nick has a confession.
I have a confession. My listeners know I have picked up smoking.
Okay.
Cigarettes.
Cigarettes,
Okay,
everyone.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, not weed. That's middle school. No, I'm kidding. So, I'm not gonna continue smoking for very long. But if I smoke,
It's
the
only
same
been 2
day-
months. Like,
it's only been 2 months. It's like
We and I secretly as well.
yeah.
Mom, don't yell at me.
Yeah.
I know. Well, we started at Burning Man.
It was the Burning Man thing,
And then we
Makes
were-
all the sense.
You know?
Yeah. Well, because I don't
Were
drink
you
alcohol.
stuck in the flood?
Yeah,
Yes,
we
dude.
were.
Full on mud apocalypse, 13 days.
Oh my God.
And I was like worried about like not drinking there. Not an alcoholic, but I just like have been loving how sobriety has helped my life. And
Sure.
Burning Man is one big giant open bar.
100%.
So I was like, okay, if I get overwhelmed, like my sobriety right now is like super important to me, because like honestly, I just keep like getting prettier and making more money. That's kind of the biggest thing. Is it's like I'm able to like do more work. So I'm like, I can't, like I have so many like professional goals that like I can't be hungover at all with what we're trying to do. So I was like, what if every time I kind of like feel like I need to drink at a party, I just smoke a cigarette?
That's arguably worse.
I know, but it doesn't like affect my schedule the next day, I guess.
Honestly, it kind of focuses you. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, all right, like, what do I got to do next? But because I know, like,
We've seen the new documentary about vaping, but we're talking about
No, I
firing
haven't.
up tobacco,
But
right?
I
yeah.
have not seen that, but I do not vape. Get that shit away from me. I think it's
Okay.
embarrassing. I'm talking to all of you.
It's like their little baby bottle. It's kind
I
of
don't
weird,
like it.
but
And they hit it like this.
Yeah,
and,
right.
oh, what was the statistic
in church and
Yeah,
everything.
in church and shit. Yeah,
Literally.
like, get out of here.
What was the statistic you read about vaping?
Oh, okay. This is what it was. I guess the amount of puffs per vape is like pretty much a carton of cigarettes. So, but like, so even if you smoked a pack a day,
I think
okay,
it's a lot more than that.
It seems like a lot more, right?
5,000 hits for one pack of cigarettes.
yeah.
Now,
Yeah, that's
I'll be
true.
honest with you. Full disclosure, okay,
Yeah.
and I'm going to regret saying this on camera, but back when I was playing baseball and I thought that was going to be my career, I used to chew 2.5 cans a day. And then when I stopped chewing, I started smoking to try and supplement it. And it was ridiculous how I'm already the slowest man alive. But when I started smoking cigarettes, getting 90 feet to first base became impossible for me.
Yeah.
No, I'm
in a
having
time
trouble
frame.
going upstairs.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I
this
feel
is
like-
a problem.
I've noticed certain things like that as well. That I'm
Well,
kind of like,
I'm like tying my
So-
shoes and getting out of breath.
So
Oh my God.
let's talk about that
Yeah.
because So one of the cool things is one of my first clinics I had out in Denver, I was affiliated with another practitioner, and where we started Neurofeedback really taking a fold with some of our original members of our clinic was in Aspen Ridge Addiction Centers, which is an addiction place here in Colorado. And changing the brainwave chemistry or the communication to the addiction center of the brain actually caused a lot of inhibition towards relapse for addicts. And the same thing could be applied towards cessation of smoking. Now, then if you think about, okay, well, say that I pick up this nasty habit for a little bit of time and it's just summertime fun or whatnot, and now we're going into winter and I want to quit. Well, how do I reverse any of the damage I've done to my lung?
This is what I'm looking at.
This guy right here helps with that.
So, Mom, I have been smoking, but I'm also doing HBot. So
It's not an excuse, Mom.
just saying, how many smokers do you know in the HBot? But does it really? Because I feel
Does it cancel out the benefits?
I don't want to say that it cancels
Okay.
out the benefits. I don't want to say that it cancels out the damage that cigarettes do
Okay.
either. But I will say that I have a fair amount of COPD patients that do very well with hyperbaric. You have to also, as your lungs are more compromised, then we have to modify the intensity of hyperbaric that you're able to tolerate, because what happens is if I'm giving you too much oxygen, your lungs are compromised in the respiration rate, then you're not blowing off enough CO2 and we end up accumulating more CO2 as I'm giving you more oxygen. So that makes it a more complicated case for us. Nevertheless, my staff is all well trained on how to accommodate that, but stop smoking.
I really think like Francesca and I always say it's like smoking's bad for you. I've literally
It's not
felt
good
it.
for your social environment.
Yeah,
It's not good for your dating environment.
No,
It's not good for your car.
yeah.
No, it's bad.
No, it's bad.
It's gross.
It's also so expensive in Colorado.
Oh.
I thought cigarettes were like $30 a pack.
You know what they're doing
12.
in Europe is they're like $35 a pack. So that you got to be in the top 3% echelon to even afford to smoke cigarettes.
Breckenridge has an extra $11 or $14 on every tobacco sale, so it's over $20 a pack there.
Wow.
There's actually like I've seen a graph where the more it costs, the less people smoke, like to the cent.
Well, yeah, because people will go broke killing themselves.
Me.
Literally.
Isn't that crazy? But so it does reverse it though. That's good to know. That's good
It
to know.
helps.
Yeah.
It helps repair it. We'll say that.
What have you like with? We have a family member with COPD, and have you seen like a significant like being able to kind of build up their tolerance to HBot, like? And I guess like would it be like lung capacity?
Yeah. So when you have COPD or emphysema, one of the clinical diagnoses is that you go to a pulmonologist and we do a lung capacity test, right?
Okay.
And so in several cases throughout my career, I've seen patients that come to me because they're having a hard time. Most of these patients are COPD or emphysema patients that have moved to Colorado, and adjusting to altitude has been rough on their lungs. And so a gradual increase of that pressurization has helped them acclimate to the thinner air and the harder oxygenation for them to achieve with already dysfunctional parts of their lungs. And then we see the objective findings being that when they go back to their pulmonologist, typically patients that follow right recommendations for this modality are starting to see a gradual increase in their lab results or their lung volume tests. But again, when a patient comes in, that's one of the contraindications is to talk about any pulmonary disorders so that we know, hey, we're not going to start you at full pressurization. We need to kind of gradually increase that, make sure that it's a comfortable experience, but also that we're not giving you too much oxygen that your lungs aren't capable of neutralizing in the CO2 that you're blowing off. Yeah. So it's more of a complicated case, and those cases are more than applicable for this office in Cherry Creek. But then if there's some other things that we have to face as far as your blood oxygen levels and things like that, then there's some other tools that we offer at my main clinic down south. So
Sorry, I'm just super like directly interested in this because this family member, I want to move out to Colorado for life and like longevity. would it be better if someone does have COPD to move out here because it actually kind of forces their lungs to like exercise more, like to live at altitude in their late age?
I mean, to be honest, it depends on case to case. I
Okay.
mean, for instance, my mother was a rock and roll photographer that lived out here in the 70s.
Yes.
The epitome of a hippie that thought, well, I lived there in the 70s, and now that I'm in my late 60s, early 70s, I know how Colorado is. And it was like a night and day change for her to come out here in her 60s than when she was out here in her 20s,
Yeah.
right? And so, but to realize like your lungs' capacity to handle thinner air and less oxygen concentration in our respiratory system at altitude makes this modality even more beneficial, but those patients probably need this in a lot more regular frequency than you and I do. So, you know, there's a way to accommodate to live out here, but it still depends on case to case the level of severity that they have COPD or emphysema or both.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. Oh, I guess I don't know if, you know, I feel like some things like disclaimer wise, you can't like say that it does anything, but maybe there are studies with this. I know that like cancer cells are supposed to like not be able to survive in like an extremely oxygenated environment, right?
It's very true. And I also will divulge to you about 5 years ago, I got diagnosed with lymphoma myself.
Oh my gosh.
So I have what's called cutaneous T-cell lymphoma, which turns out I've actually had since I was a young kid, but it's a very slow-moving, very rare cancer that should not impair my life expectancy as long as it stays in stage 1 or 2. When we get into stage 3 or 4, it's a little different ballgame. However, from a clinical standpoint, I'll never make a claim just for my own safety, let's say.
Yeah, like anecdotally
that hyperbaric's going to reverse or cure or anything like that cancer. However, if we look at it from a biological standpoint, okay, most cancer cells tend to be in the anaerobic category. Anaerobic meaning that they do not like oxygen. So in that standpoint, what I will say is that very often, whether it's post-chemotherapy where we're helping to regenerate nervous function, helping to regenerate how fast we're healing from the damage that radiation and chemo does, it's proven to be pretty beneficial for a lot of my patients over the years.
Cool.
The other aspect is if I'm putting your body and your cells in a hyperoxygenated status, I would have a hard time not arguing that putting a lot of oxygen towards a cellular function that does not like oxygen at the very least inhibits the functionality of that cancer cell. A lot of oncologists would yell at me for making those claims, but me as a cancer patient, I have never done any kind of radiation, chemotherapy, anything besides mega doses of IV infusions of ascorbic acid and a regular regimen of hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And as long as I've been diagnosed, I have never progressed out of stage 1A. So say what you want about that, but I'd have to perplex myself a little bit not to consider that what I'm doing as being beneficial.
I feel like that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's a good way to say it. Yeah. But
yeah. So, I mean, in my main clinic, I see all walks of life that come through, and my satellite offices like the HBot Spa, we see everybody that's looking for, hey, I got weekend warrior syndrome where I go out and bang myself up and I need to feel better so I can get to the office on Monday. I got the college kids and the high school kids that maybe went too hard in the paint on Friday night with their buddies and need to recover. But on the same token, for a lot of different ailments, from everything from post-surgical recovery, that's one of the big reasons why we not only here at the Cherry Creek office, but we're also partnered in the same space as the Look Med Spa. So it complements that cosmetic realm really well as far as how well you want to reduce the inflammation from your Botox injection to how quick you want to have recovery from an incision from maybe some cosmetic procedure. Yeah. And same thing with orthopedics. So the nice thing about this modality is there's a very, very wide breadth of people that have applicability to using this. So that's why we brought it here.
Cool.
Heck yeah.
I love
So also what makes this different is you are like one of the only places that offers like like an unlimited that you can come.
Yeah.
Because it's normally how much at like another office?
So on average in this country, it's somewhere between $100 to $150 a session. Okay. Now, we have our a la carte menu that still makes it the most competitive rate in the country. Last time I checked, about $1 a minute. But also, if this is something that you want to commit to, like you guys should, then $600 a month gets you unlimited, and we're open 20 days a month. So you come in 20 sessions a month for $600 equates to $30 a treatment, which
that's
is
so wild.
50 cents a minute, which nobody touches in this country. Actually, last time my marketing team looked, nobody touches that in the world. So
cool.
Damn.
And the same thing with our IV bags. The nice thing is we compound on site. We're not buying pre-made bags like some IV hydration places do. So my paramedics and my medical staff on board will look at your height, your weight, and talk to you about what you're dealing with and formulate a bag for one of our 6 included bags for our membership to make sure that the osmolarity and the potency is appropriate for the individual, which is it equates to a better efficacy. Plus,
I was so interested in that because most of the places, like people for hangovers or bachelorette parties, they come and get the IVs. But since I have like the genetic, I don't think it's a disorder, but the mutation of MTHFR, which if you don't know, I don't like methylate certain B vitamins. I have to have like a different form. So like if I take regular B vitamins, like I go crazy. So, but I thought that was so cool that you compound here so we could just leave that out and do like a specific one to my body.
Exactly. And then once you have that initial consultation with our staff, we know what is and what is not supposed to be in your bag. And then all of a sudden it becomes a very easy thing to schedule and get in for. Plus, our membership is our membership. So our membership isn't a fee that you pay and then you get a discounted member rate for things. It is hey, you can come in here 20 times a month to do an IV off of those 6 bags that are included in your membership, as long as my medical team doesn't see any reason for it being unsafe for you to do too much or too little of certain things. So,
like if I do NAD every day and I get too skinny.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
But no, and also I kind of wanted to tell everyone, or Nick, I feel like I'm talking too much, but maybe tell them the experience when you come and get in the hyperbaric chamber. Like what's it like when you come in here?
Oh yeah,
and like
I want
the
to know
vibe.
how my staff is doing.
Yeah.
Your staff is great, by the way. We love them.
They're wonderful. Yeah.
Well, no, so you just come in and it's a chamber and you just hop in like a bed. I thought it was like, I don't know why I thought I was going to have to like undress or something. I don't know. But or like getting like scrubs, like or something like an MRI. Like, you have to like go get in and get raised on it and,
no magnetic fields in these guys.
Yeah, nothing. But it's really just, you kind of come in and you sit in there and you can bring your phone. You just have to take off your shoes. I've fallen asleep in it the other day, which, what happens if you slept in it?
The best.
So
when I had, so on and off, I've had a chamber in my home. I tend to invite certain athletes to my house and they talk me into selling them my chamber. And then I wait until I got time to put another one in. But in my single days, so to speak, I mean, I'm still single, but I'm dating. But on the same token, when I was completely single, 4 nights a week, I'd sleep in it about 5 hours a night.
5 hours a night? You don't wake up blind or something? I don't know.
No. I woke up earlier and more energetic, and
really?
I had better mental clarity throughout the day.
Cool.
A lot of people think of hyperbaric, they hear the word or the name Michael Jackson and think about that. I like to think about Joe Namath, who's a legend in NFL history, right? Things like Joe, you'll notice they took him off camera for about 3 years because he was having some early onset dementia signs and things like that. He started doing hyperbaric about 3 to 5 years ago, and all of a sudden now he's in commercials. He's doing cameos in movies. He's back on ESPN on a regular basis. So the mental clarity that comes from regular hyperbaric oxygen use is pretty awesome. But
Cool.
if you can swing it and have one in your home, sleeping in it's the creme de la creme.
Oh man, yeah, that's good
Wow.
to know. I didn't know if it would like do too much of
No,
something.
so
or something.
I mean, we look at things like the main complication of hyperbaric oxygen therapy can be oxygen toxicity. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
You're going to notice that if we're in a much higher atmospheric pressure than what these guys are doing. This is mild hyperbaric. So we get to about 1.4 atmospheres. If for some reason you absolutely, for a clinical diagnosis, need 2 atmospheres, we have one of those chambers at my office down in Centennial. But for most people aiming to just maximize their living, this is a fantastic modality. But you're very rarely at mild hyperbaric oxygen pressure going to complicate things through oxygen toxicity. Things like that would look like you'd get out and feel lightheaded or nauseous or something, which again, my staff, as I'm sure you guys have experienced, first thing they ask you is how you're feeling, how you're doing, make sure that you're good to go before you ever leave this office. And they're mainly asking those questions to make sure that we don't have any signs of something like oxygen toxicity.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. Yeah. For me, like getting out, I don't feel drowsy. I feel drowsy because I'm like laying down, which is also funny because as we've been really busy, it's hard to, come almost like, trying to go to the gym is just like getting there is the hardest part for me. But then like we've been like, all right, all you got to do is go and lay down. You don't, it's just, but you just got to go, because you can have your phone and literally take a nap. And so I'm like, oh, I just can't take a nap today or something like that.
Well, and it's like, I mean, everything from kids that come after school and do their homework in there. Like I said, it's 32-inch diameter. So as somebody who's 6'3" on a good day, I sit up in there and my head doesn't touch. So you can sit up there with a laptop on your lap and do work. I got so many business professionals that come to the office and the entire time they're in there, they're on a conference call. I use it as an excuse that nobody in my staff, no patients, nobody can ask me questions for an hour. So I get a little peace of mind. A lot of people meditate in there. I think if you do some kind of mental health practice for yourself, that doing it under hyperoxygenated status is extremely beneficial for you. But I'd say about 7 out of 10 of my patients, I wake up when their session's over.
Makes sense.
I love it because I feel like it gives you that time to like slow down. Like you're giving yourself permission to like, no one can talk to me. If I'm already in here, I can meditate. Right. And it actually like kind of like makes you slow down.
The idea that this modality has to interfere with your day is a misconception.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
I mean, maybe the commute here and the 5 minutes getting checked in with my staff interferes with your day, but once you're in that chamber, you are left alone. It's pretty quiet in there, and I've custom built some boxes around here made by Metal Furniture, who's a buddy of mine, that did this kind of design for us, so that we've reduced some of the reverb and the sound in there. So you can actually take a phone call without it sounding like you're in a wind tunnel kind of thing.
Well, is there anything else? Like, where can people find you, follow you? Anything we didn't, that you want to plug?
Yeah. So on Instagram, we are the HBot Spa, which is the _HBot, HBOT _spa. Also, what's really important to understand is that prior to having to commit to something like our membership, throughout the month of October and most likely into November through Thanksgiving, we're going to be doing our promotion that I've been giving out, which is if you buy one session, which is a whopping $100, you get up to 5 treatments in that week if you come in, so that you're able to experience the effects of hyperbaric and then therefore make an educated decision if our membership or one of our packages is right for you. I think that hyperbaric kind of speaks for itself in the fact that within those first 2 to 3 sessions, you tend to notice the impacts of it. So that's behind that promo. And then we're going to be also starting in the month of November on Wednesdays. I'm doing a social gathering, which is going to be called Wine, Women, and Wellness Wednesdays, where we have different guests coming in talking about money management and things like that, as well as the Look Med Spa next door will be giving some promotional things away, and exclusive promo codes will be handed out to our attendees there. We'll be doing that once a month, and then a couple different mental health support groups I'm starting on a monthly basis that will meet in this facility, and the same kind of gig will take place for them. But yeah, to find us, go to thehbotspa.com, and also 303-353 9523, I think is this.
I think that's it.
Yeah, I have too many offices. But that is our phone number. It's also listed on our Instagram. So,
and we'll have everything in the show notes. And I'm so excited about the Wednesdays. I will be here. Also, I was going to ask the girls that work for you. I was like, is like having your office next to like a aesthetic medical office like hard? Because I've never had anything done, but I feel like if I saw it every day, and I had like a promotion for like, I don't know, Botox. Like I want to try it out. But yeah, so I feel like I just learned so much.
Yeah.
I'm so excited
good.
to have like more educational type like podcasts on here. So thank you. You're a first doctor.
Thank you.
Oh wait, no, our brother.
Yeah,
Our brother was our first doctor, but we didn't talk about anything medical. And you guys, we are going to start posting some more Instagram and TikToks about our journey and our before and afters. So follow along, all the info in the show notes. And thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Cheers.
it, guys.
See you guys next week.
Bye.